out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 97th edition of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. And we appreciate you tuning in to listen to me, Mac B, the Wolf, American expat, living just off Abbey Road and other places in Europe. He likes to talk about classic rock, hard rock, prog rock, heavy metal, early MTV with his partner in crime, Gary Action Jackson, on the East Coast of the USA. And I hope to goodness that you heard last week's show. Last week's show was amazing. We had on Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp of the Rock On Tours and Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets, who are currently on their U.S. tour, the Echoes Tour, doing the music of Pink Floyd from the beginning, from the 60s, from the UFO Club, all pre-Dark Side of the Moon tunes. And I saw them play in London at Royal Albert Hall. You can hear our episode on that on 75. But Gary and Guy are great. They have a fantastic show. They have fantastic chemistry. They're amazing musicians. They're just good interviewers and good interviewees. And we had a lot of fun with them promoting their tour. And so you can check out episode 96 in case you missed it. But hopefully you're checking out Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets on their U.S. tour. And you know at this point that you can win an exclusive VIP experience thanks to us at Ugly American Werewolf and Pantheon Podcast. All you got to do is go to pantheonpodcast.com/Nick Mason and you can enter to win this VIP experience, which includes 2 front row seats to see Nick and the boys and Guy and Gary doing this incredible music. And you can go to Ticketmaster.com to get most tickets. I know the show we're going to be at in Indianapolis on October 14th. Those tickets are available through Ticketmaster. So go get the tickets and then come out and see us. Then enter to win. And hopefully you'll get an amazing experience, get to see him up close, get some good goodies from Nick and the gang. Now this week, we're going to be doing a review of an album that's turning 30 years old. One that was big for me in action in college, and that's Keith Richards' Main Offender. I know what you're saying. In 1993, you were into Keith Richards? Wasn't everybody into Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilots and awaiting Hootie and the Blowfish to come on the scene? And for most of our kids our age, the answer was yes, but Gary and I were kind of old school. I mean, even back then, we kind of tilted to the older generation. We loved 60s and 70s rock. We liked the stuff we grew up on in the 80s, but we knew that there was great stuff from the 60s and 70s that maybe we missed out when it was conceived or when it was first played on the radio, but that doesn't mean it's not good. And having the Stones reform for Steel Wheels in 1989 was huge for us because that allowed us to see our first, not only Stones show, but big stadium show. And give us kind of the bug to make sure we go out and see big-time bands and big-time shows whenever we get the chance. Now, this was his second solo album. He did talk his cheap before Steel Wheels. And it was, there's some jabs at Mick in there, and it's a pretty good record, but he brought everybody back to do Main Offender. And I don't know, it just kind of hit when we were in college. They actually played it on rock radio. Wicked As It Seems was a killer track on there. And so we wanted to review it on its 30th anniversary. Now, point of fact, this is one that's been on the shelf for a while. Keith released a 30th anniversary edition back in March, and I ordered it from Amazon, and it took a few days to get there, so we kind of missed our window on when we were going to record and then release that. And then, I don't know, special things started to happen. We started to have a lot of great guests on the show. I started to go into a lot of concerts that demanded we put the live reviews right out, and so it sat on the shelf for a little while. So we're talking about things at the beginning of the show that have already come to pass at this point. We're talking in like March about things that were happening in March of 2022, and I didn't know at that point that I was going to go see the Rolling Stones again for the 7th and 8th time in Hyde Park at British Summertime in Hyde Park twice this summer. So you got to kind of get through the first couple minutes of that saying, hey, isn't it great the Wynos just did a show in New York? But the bottom line is it's a great album, and we review it, and we review the live disc that kind of came with the deluxe edition. And don't worry, I'm not mad at Amazon, and please, by all means, continue to subscribe and download to The Ugly American Werewolf on Amazon Music. I know I do. Now, on to a little bit of business. We are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast family. As you know, we're sponsoring Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets U.S. Tour, and we always give shout-outs to the folks we've had on our show or we've been on theirs, including Paul Stevenson of Vintage Rock Pod and This Day Rocks, including Tom and Zeus of the Kiss Kings on the Shout It Out Loud cast, including DJ Scott in Chicago for the Hook Rocks and Christy Alexander Hallberg for Rock Is Lit. And we have to thank our incredible sponsors, RareVinyl.com. Guys, Rare Vinyl has been doing this for 40 years, collecting, curating, maintaining, and shipping vintage rock records, whether it's LPs, EPs, CDs, 45s, tour programs, whatever it is. They have over 250,000 items in stock. And if you use the code PODCAST, PODCAST, you can save 10% off all of your orders. Not just the first order, but every order you make. And I know that there are people who are going to see Saucer Full of Secrets, who might want a classic Pink Floyd or first edition, maybe a tour program, whatever it is. Go to rarevinyl.com or EIL.com, their sister site. Use podcast, save 10%. Now back to Keith. I don't know if we're ever really going to see Keith in the Wynos tour again. It's something I would absolutely love. I know there are a lot of fans out there who would. But I don't know if it's actually going to happen, folks. It just seems like he might as well just keep the Stones going. I mean, if they're not going to stop after Charlie passes away, they're probably never going to stop until either Mick or Keith pass away or just physically can't do it anymore. But I'd love to see it. I know Jackson would love it. And hopefully you listen to some of these tunes, listen to these records, you'll see the value in having a Keith and a Wynos tour out there. So why don't you do that? Why don't you kick back, listen to Main Offender, listen to what we have to say about it. We're going to talk about Keith Richards' Main Offender 30th Anniversary Edition here on The Wolf. There's actually a lot going on in Keith Richards' world right now. Like over the last month, a lot has been happening with old Mr. Keith. No slowing down at 78, I guess, Jackson.
No, it doesn't look like he has plans to do that and still has the passion to keep going after all this time.
So cool to see. Of course, Keith is renowned Rolling Stones guitarist, written all the songs with Mick, bit of a raconteur in his day. A lot of people never thought he would make it this long. So I guess, you got to keep going. Right? You can't just say, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Well, and I think I was thinking about this the other day. They're now announcing a whole nother leg of the tour, I guess. I guess it's the same tour. It's going to be in Europe. It doesn't seem like they're slowing down at all, but they don't need the money. Okay, that's not what we're doing here. They just love to perform live. They love to go out there. They love to be in front of the crowd and entertain. Yeah, it's just something that he's never lost the passion for. And I think it really kind of comes out on this record, too. I don't want to say more than Talk is Cheap, but this just seems to have a different vibe to it than that record.
Well, yeah, we can get all into that for sure here momentarily. But, he and the Wynos just got together for a benefit in New York this month as we're saying this. They played 3 tunes together. They went in, it was the Beacon for the Love Rocks benefit. And, all the guys were there. I mean, I think Charlie Drayton is now Bob Dylan's bass player, so he wasn't there. But Ivan Neville, Steve Jordan, of course, Waddy Wachtel. They went out and they played 999. And they played You Got the Silver, one of our favorites from Let It Bleed, and played Before They Make Me Run. So, it's kind of like the first time they really played together in 30 years. So for a minute there, I was hopeful, hey, does that mean we might get a Wynos tour? And then I'm like, no, he's just going to tour with the Stones, man. I mean, it's just bigger crowds. You say the money doesn't matter. He's like, yeah, but if you're going to do it, might as well make millions at it rather than thousands.
Well, that
right?
is true. Although, you're right. I doubt it'll ever happen. But now that Steve is in the band, he's in the Rolling Stones.
Right.
I mean, you never know. They're touring together. You may get a one-off. Who knows? If they come to – because, they always would do that thing on the tours where they'd have the one night in wherever, like Miami.
Right.
They did, I think, on the Steel Wheels tour where Eric Clapton was there, and they had a whole bunch of guest stars. Who knows? Maybe they get everybody together and do something when it was convenient in London, in New York. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Who knows? We'll see. Can always
Fingers
be hopeful.
Crossed.
Yes, exactly. Don't know about that, but hey, there's always hope. Of course, Bobby Keys and Sarah Dash are no longer with us, but they could still do it. And, people like us would die for it. There are hardcore Stones and hardcore Keith fans who would die to see that. But in addition to that, so he's released his 30th anniversary, including like a super uber deluxe box set for hundreds of dollars that even I, huge Keith Richards fan that I am, didn't ever really seriously consider getting. But I'm glad they have the re-release here with the original album and live tracks from London, from the Town and Country Club 30 years ago, this year in December, right on Keith and Bobby Keys' birthday.
We've talked before, and I've been doing work on my time machine. It's getting there, making progress every day. This will be on the docket of things to go and see. This concert in '92, it just sounded like everybody's firing on all cylinders. It's a great set list that they have on here. I mean, when you look, there's only one Rolling Stones song here that's not a Keith song, which Give Me Shelter.
Right.
So it really is a showcase for him and his songwriting and the music that he played within the band, and then his solo stuff. So yeah, I can only imagine it was just a great show to see, and I'm sorry we missed it, but that was a long time ago, and we were not quite as into seeing shows as we are now as far as go. Like, I mean, I don't think they ever came to Orlando.
No, they didn't. Yeah, that's right. And we weren't going to fly to London around Christmas by ourselves.
As much as I would have liked to, but no.
Right, when we were sophomores in college or whatever that was. That just wasn't going to happen. But they did tour America, in 93 a bit. And I think I've seen a video that was maybe aired in Japan that you can get a DVD like on eBay or something like that. I think they may have been in Boston or something like that. At any rate, I've seen a little bit of them doing this live. And I was hoping that was going to be in one of these packages. It didn't seem to make it. I don't know if they didn't have the rights to it or it wasn't really up to snuff or whatever it was. But I feel like if you're really going to do an uber super extra deluxe box set, you got to have some kind of video, right? You got to have some kind of DVD or something of them doing it. Maybe have the official videos included in it, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. That was a lot of money to charge for the super deluxe set. I'm good with the 2 CDs.
Yeah.
The pictures in it are great.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's got some more kind of like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's got some lyrics like that obviously he wrote on pieces of paper and envelopes and stuff like that. And speaking of that, he was on CBS this morning because he's like, yes, the Stones have a new European tour and Keith and the Wynos just got together for the first time in basically 30 years, and now there's this 30th anniversary thing coming up. And so he was on there, and I don't know, it's about 7 minutes long, the whole thing. I'm listening to him for the first couple of minutes, and his voice is not that raspy. It's like it's cleared up somehow like that. I also noticed his teeth are very white. Now, that's not a big deal. All celebrities like whiten their teeth. Not a big deal. I should probably look into it. But I noticed that, and then, he kind of goes into, Keith certainly was a bit of a carouser back in his day, but he's given up all his vices, including one that he had for a long time. And they talked about how he had quit smoking for about 2 years. Now that was a shock to me. Because as we've spoken about, I believe on this show, smoking is horrible for you and it's the worst thing you can absolutely do for your health. You should not smoke cigarettes. However, if you've been doing it for 60 years, you better not quit because your body is way too dependent on it and all sorts of horrible things could happen to you, But he sounded so much better. Just talking, he wasn't wheezing or wasn't, all that noise that would come out afterwards. And they even asked Steve Jordan about it. He's like, is his singing better? He's like, yeah, he's singing, back in original key now. So I don't know if that's the case. And he even admitted, yeah, look, I've got like 10 times more wind on stage now that I'm not smoking anymore. I'm like, how about that?
Unfortunately, it looks really cool. Like to have a cigarette, and there are thousands of pictures of Keith Richards with, the cigarette either in his mouth, in his hand, it was synonymous with him, but you're right. It's just an awful habit. Don't do it. It just, And I have talked to people who smoke for a long time and they're like, yeah, you just kind of get used to it. You get used to that, just having the crud on you all the time and then you stop and why didn't I do this a long time ago? Because it was just a part of your life.
Yeah. I bet Patty is so psyched. Their homes must smell so much better now.
Oh.
Their cars. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, but he had some good stuff on there. He's talking about how losing Charlie was, a little bit of a surprise. Like he didn't know quite how sick he was, and Charlie, I guess, didn't want to make a fuss. A little bit of an Irish goodbye. Like, I'm just going to go here for, you keep on, and whatever.
Yeah, because when they had that press release, that's what it was. Oh, no big deal. He'll be back. Just taking a couple of, I don't even know if they said months, some time off or something, and then it was like, oh yeah, he passed.
He's gone. Yeah.
So yeah, that's rough because it's been so long together. I mean, since they were kids, basically
60 years. I mean, you look back there. Charlie never missed a gig for 60 years. You look back there, he's always there. And then you turn around. Yeah, Steve Jordan's your friend, and he's great, but it's it's different. And he talked about that a little bit. he sounded so good, and he seemed like he felt good, and I don't know. I was glad to see him like that, and looking forward to the future. He said he's been writing with Steve and Mick, and maybe we'll get a new Stones record. We're all psyched for the European tour, and going to see him here in Hyde Park with hundreds of thousands of other people. It's going to be it should be a great year for Keith and the Stones.
Yeah, I was interested because when I saw that the other day about how they released a note or something about how they were working on a new record with Steve Jordan. And then I got to thinking, yeah, he did a lot of work on the Keith Richards, both of these records. Mm-hmm. Will the Stones records sound different now? If he's more involved, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I think so, and so yeah, exactly, and that's why I'm anxious to hear it and to see it, And then I always thought I wouldn't go see them if Charlie wasn't with them, but I'm here, and it's Hyde Park, so we don't have to be way up close. I can take my daughter and we can go sit under a tree really far away, or we can mosey up into the mass of weirdos, or however we want to do it. But yeah, I do want to hear how Steve sounds live with him. Not that Charlie ever lost a step, not even an inch, but let's just hear how it swings differently.
Right. Yeah. And if there was anybody that could come in and not replace him, but fill in, I guess is the way I like to think about it. Yeah. It is Steve Jordan, because he plays this kind of music. He and Keith have played together for so long that he was almost kind of a part of the circle or extended circle of the band. So yeah, it's not just some random person that they got. It's somebody who's been around for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's great. So hopefully, I don't have to hope. Going to see him. Can't wait.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lehman, and you're listening to Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast.
Let's get into main offender of the reissue here. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of great pictures of Keith in here and of the band, the guys, plus Sarah. And, has the kind of notes, you want to know who played what on every song. And these are all co-written with Steve. And then, Waddy's in on some, and Charlie's got some writing credits. They kind of give some to everybody on a couple of these, or to a bunch of folks, including Sarah. I don't know, listening to it again, we wore this out in 1992 or 1993. I was kind of really buying it to get the live London show, right? Because they didn't really give us any bonus studio tracks or anything in this. So I was like, I've got it, but obviously I want to get the concert. I don't know. What did you think about listening to it for the first time in probably a while?
Well, I want to start at the beginning here. And I've said before that I'm not a huge fan usually of the album cover where it's just a picture, but this is the exception to the rule, because this is a really cool picture. And if there's anybody that's cooler than Keith Richards in the world of rock and roll, I don't know them. So it's just right off the bat, it's just this mean-looking, like, get away from me or I'm going to punch you in the face picture of him. It's half dark, half light, black and white. It's just a really intense picture, a really cool way to start off. I always kind of thought on this one, it was just a different vibe. In 87, he put out Talk Is Cheap to make a statement. I can do this by myself. I don't need Mick. I can get a group of people together, put out a record. I think at that point in time, that was going to be it. I mean, I really think the Stones were done in 1987. And so this was going to be his next phase of his career was going to be this solo stuff. Didn't happen. They got back together in 89, had a huge tour. So this was more like more relaxed. Like, let's just jam. We don't have to prove anything. Right. This is just a break. This is not the main gig. So yeah, in a way, I like Talk Is Cheap better, but in a way I like this one better because it just feels like it's looser. It feels like it's just like, hey, what do you want to play next? Okay, let's play this song. Just kind of a jam with, they call themselves the X-Pensive Wynos, but really it should be Keith Richards and Friends, because that's what it is. Like, remember you saw that video of him in Jamaica? Yeah. Where he's hanging out at his house and he just has dudes over just playing, just hanging out playing. That's what this feels like. It just feels like they're hanging around, they're playing. I always found it interesting, too, that a lot of times when you see big people from big bands have solo records, there's always like even Robert Plant would have Jimmy Page on a couple of tracks, it would kind of seep back in. Right. On this one, except for Sarah Dash, there are no Rolling Stones on this record.
That's right. Until now, of course. Because it's Steve's
until now. Retroactively, yes. Right, but back then, no. So yeah, this to me, this was just more relaxed, more of just let's have a good time making this record.
Well, I agree with you there. I connect with it more just because I didn't get Talk Is Cheap when it came out. I did get the Live at the Hollywood Palladium because it was awesome and had Connection on it. But I remember this one just because we were in college and we listened to it so much, and all the stuff that we did, sophomore year. This was a big soundtrack for it. So just remember our friends then and all the time we had out in the sun and in the dorm and cranking this a lot. At that point, we're just so into the Stones anyway. Like, we're this huge Stones phase. And Keith's still making new stuff. It was on the radio. They actually played this on, like, the rock radio station, which was great. So that's my connection to it. But you're right. I mean, Talk Is Cheap was like, all right, now I'll go out and show you I can make a band too. But it's like, well, I got this great band. Why do I want to give them up? Just because we had a big Stones tour, that's great. Awesome. Get me back with my boys again. But after 1993, they never really played together again, because after that, it was like, yeah, okay, obviously the Stones are back together and we make a ton of money. And the stages are amazing and we can get guest stars whenever we want. And it's all 6 stars. That's not 5-star even, It's like, we get whatever we want. We make a ton of money. We can do these huge shows. We can play anywhere in the world. And that's kind of what they've been focusing on for the last really 30 years. I was always hopeful that, all right, you're going to take a few years off. You could just take the Wynos out, right? Just take them out for a spin. Right. But it hasn't happened so far.
Hi, I'm Paul Stevenson from Vintage Rock Pod, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Thanks, Paul. And for all you Stones fans out there, you need to know that this is actually our 8th show about the Rolling Stones. You can go back in our history and listen to a lot of great shows about the Rolling Stones and about Keith, namely episode 16, where we review Steel Wheels, episode 22, where we review Talk Is Cheap and Main Offender, and Keith as the lead singer in the Stones. Show number 41 was our Charlie Watts tribute and the Let It Bleed review. Episode 45 featured an interview with Kurt Angelides, a photographer who has photographed the Stones for almost 50 years. Number 59 was Exile on Main Street as it approached its 50th anniversary. And show 83 was my review of the Stones in Hyde Park, my first Stones show in more than a decade and the first for the Wolf Cub. And show 84 was about my second outing to Hyde Park to see the Rolling Stones again, where they did mix up the set list, and I was glad I had the chance to see them again. So download and subscribe wherever you get them, Stones fans. And now, back to our show on Keith's Main Offender at 30. I don't know, I was kind of thinking what we could do is we could go over the live show, since that's the new part. And obviously, It's got most of the album on it. We did touch it last year on our just Keith Richards, when we did Talk Is Cheap, Main Offender together, and his singing in the Stones. And then we can maybe talk about the ones that didn't make it onto this live bit.
Absolutely. It's 12 tracks. I think they have a good mix of the old and the new, and throwing in some Stone stuff also. So I think that if you really weren't familiar with the Keith Richards catalog, I don't know why you would have been there, but if you were, you would have had a good time, because they did play songs that you would have known anyway from the Stones years.
Right. I'm with you. I was thinking, for Keith fans who really appreciate these 2 records, this would have been a great night for you. If you were just there because you wanted to hear a couple of old Stones tunes, you did get a couple, and I hope you liked them. You should have. And there's some that they played that didn't end up on the record. I go back and look at the set list. There's 12 songs on the record. There were 19 on these 2 nights at the Town and Country. And they're all the same songs, though they did mix up the order a little bit from one night to the other. But it started off, the first 5 songs from both nights were on the record. So they kind of took those first 5, and then they jumped around a little bit, but then they took about 10 songs off, and including Time Is On My Side, which I believe was on Live at the Palladium. So they didn't need to double up on that one. As far as, right, they did do Happy on both. He did Connection again, which is so awesome live, but again, they decided, let's not put that on, the new live bit. Let's put, as many of the new ones on there, or the ones associated with his record on there. Plus, of course, the opening track, Take It So Hard. Is this your favorite song on the 2 Keith records, or is it close? No?
No, it's close. I mean, my favorite song is Struggle, and I just love the way it sounds. I was always a big fan of that they did a Saturday Night Live appearance where they played that, and I Think You Don't Move Me, was the other one when Talk Is Cheap came out.
Okay.
I do love this song though. It's just a great way to start the live part off. I can't help but thinking when I hear that Talk Is Cheap record was a big kind of just dig at Mick Jagger.
Right.
And still take it so hard. It's just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you shouldn't take it so hard, Mick.
Right.
But no, it's a great song, great way to start off, and just a great jam.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like too is they extend out a lot of these songs.
True.
This was 4:15 is not that long, but still, it just sounds good. It sounds, you kind of get the motor running on the show. One that, again, if you're not super familiar, I think that was on the radio back in the day, so you should know this track.
Yeah, no, and a big fat opening Keith riff, to kind of start it off. It's just his guitar out there. The bass is up front. Charlie's kind of big. They got him up in the mix big time on this, I feel like. Maybe not as polished as it was when they were at the Palladium, because that's like their new big hit track song, or the one he's kind of kicking it all off with. So maybe they're a little more, I don't know, focused on this has got to be the one people hear. But you're right. Great way to start off the show. I think they start off both tours that way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it goes into 999, which is the first song off of Main Offender. Is 999 666 upside down, Jackson?
Interesting. What else would you be saying with that? Odd. I like this song. It's not that I didn't like it on the record, but you can hear now what it was supposed to be. These songs are made to be played live, so you hear this is a really good. The lyrics are kind of like,
right.
They're just kind of on there to make it not an instrumental, but no, that's a great live track.
It's a groove. You can tell they're in this pocket together, and they do stretch it out a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, they play some of these a little longer because, these are born out of jams, and if, the guys get into a groove, then it's just Keith putting his accents over it, with the guitar. And let him do that, So I'm with you. Of course, I was trying to get to Wicked As It Seems and Eileen and some of the next songs. I think I remember after we listened to it a couple dozen times, just skip over 999 and let's get into Wicked As It Seems. But live, it's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, and Wicked As It Seems, it was a great track. It was a cool, because I think that was the first single that came off, and it's great. Live, it's a little, I want to say it's a little slow. I don't know if,
So, all right.
It's a great Keith song, though.
It's a great Keith song. You're right. The studio track did seem better. And part of that, I feel, was like the backup on It's Not Enough. It's not enough. It was a little muddled a little bit in this live bit. And I'm like, it's a cool and important part of the song. And it's just not quite the same. I did like what Waddy was doing on it, kind of, sliding around, making some good noise in the background with Keith was kind of hammer on the chords. But they let Keith noodle a little bit on the solo. To the studio version, because that was the big hit, and we heard it on the radio, and I think it's a tight, awesome Keith song. But, when they wrap it up with It's Not Enough, and that's it. Still, we would have died to see it live.
Of course.
We would have freaked out. So, it's not as good as studio. Who cares? It's he's got to play it, and they did fine with it. But that's a little bit kind of a dark song. How I Wish is more of a light, happy, brighter, major key song, And I've always liked this one. Love this song. But this one might be a little slow versus the record.
Yeah, and it sounds too almost like they had to include it. We got to have songs from the first record. We got to have songs. So put this one on there. This is not my favorite. I like it on the record. I don't really know if I love it in this live version.
Really? Because I thought it was tight after Wicked, which was, had a little looseness to it. I thought that this one was a little bit tighter. Yeah, slower, but they were more on it this time. At least that's what I heard.
Okay. I will give you that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I kind of, at this point in the show, I kind of want it to be rocking a little more. I don't know, maybe if they put it in a different spot, it would have seemed a little different to me.
All right, well, that's fair. That's an interesting take. That's why we have you on this show, Jackson, to disagree with me and say, no, that's not what it is, man. Let me tell you what it is.
Nah, you're wrong.
All right, well, I love it. Studio's probably better, but I like it a lot. And then here comes the surprise as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't, on the first live album when they did Time's on My Side, but really it's Sarah doing it. And, you do Connection, you do Happy, you do Before Me, Make Me Run. Yeah, those are Keith's songs, right? But Gimme Shelter's not a Keith song. And it's kind of the one song, especially at that time in my life, if somebody asked me, what's the best Rolling Stones song ever? I'd say, Gimme Shelter. It's just my favorite. It's got that haunting melody at the beginning of it, and it's about all sorts of crazy stuff. It's got a groove to it. It's so good. It surprised me to see it on here or on the set list back in the day. But I got to tell you, it's different than what you get with the Stones. But I really like it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those deals where if you said, well, what's he going to play? Okay, here's the set list and Gimme Shelter. That's probably not going to work. That's going to be weird. It's an iconic Stones song. It's Mick Jagger all the way.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. It works. It's just different. It's like he doesn't try and be Mick Jagger. He just sings it in his own way, and it works. It's just like that nasty, gravelly voice that he's got.
Well, obviously
it doesn't work.
Well, he's got Sarah there to do
right.
the bit in the middle, so you might as well utilize her for that, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
She's amazing,
and it totally works.
It totally works. You're right, and it's. I feel like you can hear the guitar more clearly at the beginning than you typically did with the Stones when they were playing it back in the day. Because it has to have a little bit of a ring to it, but I feel like, especially in a stadium, that can get blurred a little bit. I thought it was more clear, and obviously he sings it a little differently than Mick does. He doesn't sing it the way it is in the album. He doesn't sing it, he kind of does it his own way. Also, I thought it had more of a steady beat than a charging beat. There's a little bit of a charge to it, I feel like, on it with the Stones. Because there's, we're talking about rape and murder and, violent stuff going on. So it's got to have something to it. But I don't know, at the end or towards the end, when Sarah and Keith are kind of jamming together, she's singing, he's jamming, I do think it picks up the pace and it gets into more of a charge. Mm-hmm. Which is typically the way they do it, in my opinion.
And it's interesting too because when Mick does it, he's not playing any instruments, so he's kind of doing his dancing thing around. So I think with Keith singing the lead and playing the guitar, it almost like it steadies it a little bit because you don't have the vamping on stage,
right?
And also because this is a smaller place, like there isn't a whole lot of room to move around, so it is kind of more focused, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty cool that they did it, and with Sarah, it makes it magical. And look, I'm never going to turn down a shot to hear another way to hear "Gimme Shelter," especially when Keith is involved. So I'm glad it's on there. I'm glad they put it on the record.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, but he makes it work. And that's one of the things we talked about before on the other show about how does he have the greatest voice in rock and roll? No, he does not. But he has the greatest voice for Keith's songs. Like all of these songs really sound like if somebody else sang, like if Mick sang any of these songs, I don't like this at all. This is weird. But he can write songs for himself that utilize his voice very well.
That's right. It doesn't all have to be for Mick. And sometimes Mick's like, oh, that's a good one. And Keith's like, yeah, well, you can't have that one. That one's for me. Now, to this point in the show, I mean, this was the same, basically. And then, they did Live Too Rude, which is an old Stones cover, but kind of a reggae thing. Big Enough, which was off Talk Is Cheap, Running Too Deep, which is off of Main Offender here, and Yap Yap, which I like. And then they get into Time Is On My Side. And on the 18th, they broke into Happy Birthday to You for Keith because it is his birthday, which is cool. And they actually stick that in at the end of Happy, which we'll get to here in a minute. But then they come in with Hate It When You Leave, which I've always liked. It's this very mellow tune that comes on the record. It's this, sixth song? It's after Body Talks, so it would have been like a second side song. It's a very mellow song. And live, I just feel like his raspy voice just makes it sweet. It makes it a sweet song for him. And these are the kinds of songs I feel like he's kind of best at. He's a bit of a crooner. We like The Worst off of Voodoo Lounge. Mm-hmm. This is sweeter than that, even. I don't know. I think it's a great song.
Yes, I like this song too. I think this was the other single or another single, or at least they played it on the radio a lot when the record came out. Yeah, it really is. Like if you listen to it and if you don't listen to the lyrics, it's kind of sad. But then when you listen to what he's saying, I hate it when you're leaving me. You're like, yeah, it's sad, but it's sweet at the same time. And I really thought when you listen to Voodoo Lounge and you listen to Steel Wheels, the Keith tracks, I mean, The Worst, that's a great song. Yeah. But a lot of the other ones, these are better songs, and I kind of wish that maybe they had been on those records. They would have made it like it would have made Steel Wheels a lot cooler to me. And not that it's not a cool record, but I like these songs that he sings better than the ones on those records. It's just a perfect song for him to sing.
Well, and I think it's a lot better than some stuff on Voodoo Lounge, too. I mean, he's got another song, Voodoo Lounge, Through and Through, that is really cool. Had a great spot on The Sopranos once at the end of the show. But, you know, a lot of the songs on that record aren't amazing. And the big Love is Strong, the big single that they came out with them walking through the buildings in the video, that's a Wicked As It Seems takeoff, right? You should say, yeah. You know, Mick's like, hey, can you write like that for me? You know, so I mean, if he didn't do this record, that record, Voodoo Lounge, most certainly would have been better. I have no doubt. Or if he mixed these songs into there, absolutely it would have. All right, well now he gets into another from the Stones days, Off of Some Girls, Before They Make Me Run. This is classic Keith.
Yeah. And I'm glad they put this one on there because I don't want to say it's forgotten, but it's not as big as Happy. That's his big. That's his signature Stones tune. Right. But this is a great one too. And then, you know, it's just that sentiment of, you know, I got to walk before they make me run. I got to get out of here before they catch me.
Song about drugs and being in trouble. I mean, that was his life in the mid to late 70s, really most of the 70s, let's be honest with you, until they cleaned up in about 78. But yeah, got to move while it's still fun. And that's what the Wynos are to him, right? The Wynos are fun. The Stones, yeah, it's great, but it's a big job. It's a lot of moving parts. You know, there's a lot of people to deal with. Just like the New Barbarians were his fun after he got clean, and he had to go out with Ronnie and do that for a while. It's like, all right, well, if I'm, you know, we're not in the Stones right now. All right, let's get the Wynos together and go do that. And so, yeah, it's great that he can still do that. Too,
when you hear it live, you can tell how great these musicians are together, like how tight they are, how they can, you know, kind of play off of each other. And so I think that not that the Stones aren't great musicians, but I mean, these guys are professional gunslingers. Right. You know, like who's the best? Everybody knows, you know, if you look at like the resumes for any of these guys, like, is Waddy Wachtel a household name? No. Yeah, but then you start looking at his catalog, like, wait a minute, this guy's worked with everybody, both on production, songwriting, playing. You know, the same with Steve Jordan, the same with Ivan Neville, and all those Charlie Drayton, all these guys that he had together on this band. Yeah, it was just, I'm sure once he had that thought and started making phone calls, they just came running to get together and play with him.
Well, I feel like it's Steve Jordan who's got the Rolodex. It's like you get Steve Jordan, and then he's got everybody else, man. Yeah, he's got them all, you know, and like who's in New York, who's around, who can come in. He's got everybody. All right, we need someone to play Tin Penny. All right, I got 3 guys I can call. Hold on. You know, whatever it is. You know, he just gets folks in for it. That's another reason why I just want to see him live. It's like I could see any of those guys. Like I could see, you know, Ivan Neville playing with his brothers, or I could see Waddy maybe on tour with Stevie Nicks sometime, maybe, or something like that. Obviously, but when would you see all those guys together at once? Like that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Eileen. Which was that a single? I feel like that got some radio play too. Or maybe it's just because it was right after Wicked As It Seems.
Right, and like you pointed out before, it's really kind of hard now for me to discern that because we played this so much that, I mean, I don't know, was that on the CD? Was it on the radio? I don't know, but we listened to this song a lot. A lot, people. We wore it out. There's no doubt about it, yeah.
But that opening strum is very Keith. It's very, very Keith. And the guitar break is right on. You know, these days, Keith does take some notes off and just kind of hits the big ones when he needs to because he's got this kind of orchestra behind him. But this is, you know, he's not taking any notes off. He's playing it. And, you know, when you've got a new song, and I think it's one of the better songs on the record. It's certainly one of the most accessible, I feel like. Like, exactly, was it played on the radio? It could have been. It sounds like that. On the rock station we listened to, they probably played it some. But, you know, I think it's a really good one. I mean, you got to sing about a girl. It's got some good chord changes it. I mean, this is one of the better ones on the record, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could have been a single, and it is one of the signature tunes off the record. So yeah, I'm glad they included it in the live set because it does sound good live. I don't think there's one of these songs that doesn't sound good live.
I agree with that. That's what they're built for. I mean, I feel like they're all written out of jams, and so they're playing it live together, and then they find the groove, or they find the melody, the chord sequence that's working for everybody. Then you can slap the lyrics on it. Sometimes it's a little bad, and that sometimes because they kind of morph out of each other, some of them can sound a little bit the same, and that's what I feel about some of these tracks.
Right.
But overall, I still think they're great. And Will But You Won't, I mean, great Keith riff to start off with. Could this be a Stones song? See, I say no, because I can't really see how Mick would fit in here. It would obviously be very different.
Then you should just stop right there, because I think that's the thing. If Mick can't fit in the song, it's not a Stones song. I know that I remember when they did Steel Wheels, he started to have a couple of songs where I don't even know if he played the guitar, but he had it with him. So it gave the appearance of that. So I think that he can't take a song off. He's got to be part of it. So yeah, if it doesn't have a clear part for him, no, it's not going to happen. I really feel like both of these, Will But You Won't, and then right into Body Talks, these sounded like jams that then they kind of worked backwards and made into songs.
Probably so, yeah. And they're jamming hard on this, but Keith's on the guitar. Like I said before, sometimes he will take some notes off these days. He's not taking any riffs off. He's right on it here. I get the feeling he liked this one because it wasn't bad on the record. It was the second to last track, so sometimes we didn't make it all the way to the end, right? And it does sound a little bit like Body Talk too. But I think live, this is one of the best ones on here.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I like the way that they're playing, and who knows, maybe now we've gotten far enough into the show where everybody's warmed up, everybody's grooving. I think if you're doing this, or if you're playing in the band, you have to realize that it's Keith Richards, right? Like he's the star, everybody else. So you kind of have to get on the same page with what he's doing, and if he wants to change it up a little bit, you have to change. So it's almost like you're kind of waiting. He's like the band leader. And so you're kind of waiting to see what he's doing, and everybody in the band is good enough where that's not going to mess them up.
Well, that's right. No, these guys.
If you change, if you slow it down, or they'll just kind of fall in line behind you. And I kind of feel like now that's where we are, and that just let him run, and we'll fill in behind what he's doing. Yeah, no,
you're right about that. Yeah, and this is when they deviate a little bit from the set list, or they start to leave a few things out at this point. They're going to do Body Talks, but they take out, I Could Have Stood You Up. They take out Connection. On the record here, now we get into Body Talks. And yeah, there's the little happy anniversary to Patty, because I didn't realize this. They got married on Keith's birthday. They got married on Keith's 40th birthday, December 18th in 1983. She was about 26 or 27, something like that. But you think about that, 40 and she's 27. Oh, it's so different. But now that he's 78, well, look, she's 65. Look, she looks amazing for 65. There's really not that big of a difference anymore,
Right. Yeah, and she was not she was a big time model when he married her. So it wasn't like, she was working at a Target or something.
That's for sure.
In Des Moines, Iowa, or so. Yeah, she was a worldly person. So I think that's probably why it worked out for him. And I actually knew a guy who did some work at Keith's house in Connecticut for him. And he just said that she was just a very sweet person. Like Keith was kind of he lives in his own world.
Yeah.
She's the person that kind of grounds him to reality. Like this guy was telling me that after he was done, he got paid, but he also got I think he got a signed guitar, and he got tickets to a show or something. And he was like, that was all her. Like, I know that she impressed upon him what a big fan I was. And so she got it done. Like, well, that's cool. That's just a nice person, and I think that's what he needs to navigate the world that most people don't live in. Like Keith, we don't all get up at 2:00 in the afternoon and do whatever we want. So come back to earth, baby. Here we go.
Well, yeah, and she, they live in Connecticut because that's where she grew up. That's where her family's from. But they met at Studio 54 in 1979, and have been together ever since. And you have no doubt that they are still deeply in love. I saw the most amazing picture a few months ago. I think it was on social media. And Keith was sitting there kind of cross-legged with a guitar in his hand, strumming a little bit with a kind of a funny look on his face. And the kids were around or whatever. Patty was sitting behind him, so he couldn't see her, but she was looking at him. Okay. And listening to him, and she had this huge ear-to-ear grin on her face, like, that's my man, and that's what he does. He plays that guitar, and he does it as well as anybody who's ever done it. And she was beaming. She was so happy, and I'm like, wow, man, that's when you found it. And Keith, despite everything he did to himself and to other people, hey, man, he found the right one for him.
And who knows, maybe that's what kept him going all those years too. I mean, had he married somebody who it didn't work out, or it wasn't,
or he got married 5 times or something like that.
Right. Like I look at the Paul McCartney Heather Mills thing. I mean, he married her after Linda died. It just was horrendous. And so it was that, had he been married 5 times after that, would he still even be around today? Who knows? I mean, I really do think that she keeps him tethered to the earth. And other than that, he would have just floated away into outer space.
He might have. Yeah, he might have. All right, well, quick on Body Talks. After the happy anniversary, and hey, we're only 9 now, he intros the band. And then Sarah's doing a lot of talking while Keith is singing, and then he'll sing, and then she'll do a little talking, almost like some jive talking, up in his grill, kind of thing. But and I like the chord changes for the mini bridge. But you give Sarah another chance to shine here, and it's a little bit of a jam at the end. It's a little different from it's not way different, but it's a little bit different from the way they do it on the record.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it works. Again, I think that a lot of these songs were stuff that they were fooling around with. So if that's the case, if there really is no concrete structure to it, you can stretch it out. You can kind of put these bridges in, rework it a little bit, and it's not that big of a deal. It just flows. Well, and actually, real quick, you were talking about Connection and how they did not put it on this record. I'm glad they didn't, because the one from the Hollywood Palladium was such a great version. There's no way it could have been better. It would have just kind of been like the other one better.
You're right about that for sure. And I remember seeing the video. It looks like Keith is walking off the stage, and Waddy, they're walking off the stage, and then Steve just goes into that sick drum beat, like pop, 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 and it's got a lot of pop to it. And I remember Waddy looking like, are we going? Are we doing this? What? And Keith's just like, oh, all right, yeah. And then he went right into it, and I'm like, oh, that was so hot. That was so good. So you're right. They couldn't have done it better. I'm sure it was still good, but they couldn't have done it better.
If you listen to that song, the Connection, like the original, I think it was Between the Buttons or something.
That's right.
You made this 1,000 times better. I mean, okay, I granted it was recorded a long time ago, but it's so much better live. And to hear them do that, it just makes it gave it a whole nother life. Because I remember when we heard that, I was like, I don't even remember.
I don't even know I know, because it doesn't sound the same. Yeah. But he's been doing it with the Stones, and he did it on the last tour. And so you never know. Now, it used to be he had Happy and maybe something else. Like when you see him live, you get Happy, and then you get one of his new songs off the record, like we would get The Worst on Voodoo Lounge, or, whatever it would be the doing. But now that he's got so many, he doesn't even have to do Happy every time. And he still does Before Make Me Run and Little T&A. And so if he does Connection live when I see him, my head might explode. That might just be the end of me.
That might be okay. Well, at least we know that going into it. And what happened to him? Well, they played Connection, and, well, you know the rest.
His head exploded. That's right. But so moving into something they did put on the last album, or the live album, Happy here, okay? I feel like it's a little bit of an odd opening to me.
Okay.
It doesn't seem the kind of smooth that he usually does it with the Stones. I think Waddy kind of makes it good. But I do feel like he's singing it more than shouting. I feel like with the Stones, there's so much noise behind him. Maybe he feels like he has to sing it louder, or maybe it's just the recording's better. I don't know, but it feels like he's singing a little bit more than maybe what I'm used to, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. When this thing arrived via the Amazon people, and I looked at the track listing, because that's what I like to do first. 8 minutes and 31 seconds of Happy. But it works because they just extend the jam out. But I think it's a pretty short song on the record.
Yeah.
So they do a nice job of, and again, they've been playing, they can play together so well that, they could have made it probably 15 or 20 minutes without going too long.
Yeah, I feel like at first it was a little slow. It was maybe just a little bit slow, but then they start to jam. I think it picks up, and there's this one point with 5 minutes into the song where you feel like, okay, now they're coming to an end, and they ramp it back up and they do another couple of minutes. But look, you want to see him sing happy. It's what you want. If you go see Keith Richards live, obviously not every song you would love to hear him play is he going to play, but you gotta figure there's gotta be a 95 to 99% chance he's going to play happy.
Right. Yeah, that is his signature tune within the band. Although I am kind of glad that because Ronnie Wood does those set list pictures that he sells from the different shows. It's cool to see that, and it's cool to see that they're putting in different things and giving him maybe a one or two more chances to sing on the set list. I don't know if he's lobbying for that or that's just the way it fits. But yeah, he's got a lot of great songs. In fact, you infamously made me the greatest hits of Keith Richards years ago,
right?
Including stuff from the New Barbarians, and you could do a whole set just his Stone songs and have it be great.
By the way, that Little Troublemaker song that's on that I put as the New Barbarians, it's actually Nicky Hopkins' solo album, but he made it with the New Barbarians, maybe minus Keith. So it probably shouldn't be in there, but it was such a cool song, and I knew you didn't know it. So I'm like,
it sounds like it.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have a hard time talking me out of that, but it's a great tune.
Yeah. No, I hope you still like that. I think because that computer's dead now, I never made one of those for myself, so I might need you to rip those to bring them to me. So
I definitely still have a copy of that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you mentioned Ronnie's set list thing. I said, oh, yeah, those are nice. That's kind of cool. That'd be a good souvenir. So I assume that if they do one from Hyde Park, I'll be shelling out for one of those.
Ooh, that's going to be, that might have to be a Christmas birthday double up because those things are not cheap.
Yeah.
But they're really cool. And I think we talked about this we're getting off on a tangent here. When Crossroads came out, the Eric Clapton box set, and this is really cool. Wait, Ronnie Wood did the picture from the Rolling Stones? Ronnie Wood? Yeah, he's a really good artist.
He is. He's very talented.
Yeah.
All right. So, but at the end of that song, though, Jackson, it's like, hey, thanks, best birthday I ever had. The crowd breaks into Happy Birthday, which may have actually happened earlier in the show, but they piped that in at this point on the record. So he turned 49 that day.
In 92. Okay.
In 92 in London. I'm going to be turning 49 in London this summer. You've recently turned 49, not too far away from his birthday. I remember people thinking Keith was so old at 49. And here I am at 49 thinking, God damn, yeah, I do feel old. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, sometimes my back makes me feel very old, but then otherwise I'm like, well, I still think basically the same way I did while I was in college sometimes, I still dress the same when my wife will let me get away with it. So it's not, 49's not that old, even though some mornings 49, hi there.
Yeah. And you figure you've not done quite the amount of damage that Keith did to himself at 49.
No, I don't think I'm going to be able to catch up with him on that score. All right, let's whip it up. Let's wind it up with Whip It Up, the last one on here. Again, this feels like one that came out of jam. And, it starts with chords that don't seem to make any sense. It doesn't sound quite like it did on the record. But then Steve comes in to steady it, and then I think it pulls together. And it's not my fave, but the long jam at the end makes it okay, well, I'm glad, they put that on here.
So that's interesting. Do you think that was on purpose, or do you think there was a little bit of a miscue, and then Steve has to say, hey, wait a minute, we're getting off track here, I'll fix this?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the songs basically begin with Keith coming out here's the power riff, whatever it is. He's done that for a lot of the songs on this record. So it's not like it doesn't fit sonically or it doesn't match what they're doing. It just seemed like it was a little off to me, or I was having a hard time following it versus the way it was solidly done on the record. I don't know. But I think Steve is, you can't say he's the leader of the band because that's Keith for sure. But I don't know. It's like he's the rudder.
Yeah, it's almost like I watched baseball for a long time, And as a kid, and I never really realized that the umpire, I'm not the umpire, the catcher, because he's telling everybody what to do. That's the way the drummer is. The drummer is, he sets the groove. If he falls apart, and this was always Charlie Watts' great talent, is that you have to set it, because if you fall off, the train would come off the tracks.
Right.
So yeah, they are, I think if you play live and you kind of you kind of wander off into the weeds, that's what brings you back, is the drumming.
Yeah, exactly. Steve's on top of it, and he wrote all these songs, co-produced it with he knows how it all goes. So let him get back there and keep the beat there. Absolutely. So, yeah, I don't love that one. In fact, Running Too Deep, which is on, the 8th song on the record, that's not on the live bit, I think it's a little bit like Whip It Up as far as the style of song, but I think I like that one a little bit better of the two of them.
Well, here's always the hard part with live or greatest hits records. There's always going to be, well, why'd you put that one on there and you didn't put this one on there? You're not going to make everybody happy. So you're going to have to live with some kind of, well, why didn't they do that? How come they didn't put that on there? Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's the best tune on there, but it's what we've got. So you kind of have to live with it.
Well, right, and look, Keith's lived in the Caribbean for years, and he's got a definite reggae bent to him, and he and Peter Tosh had a thing going for a while. So Words of Wonder, which is the 4th song on the record, it's got a reggae bent to it, but they did Too Rude, the old Stones cover. So, they don't necessarily have to do 2 reggae songs. So Too Rude didn't make it on the live bit, but they were doing that live. So they don't do Words of Wonder on it. Charlie's bass is all over that song. I think it's great, but it's just one I guess they decided not to do live.
Were you talking about Words of Wonder?
Yeah.
I don't know if that would have... Yeah, that would have been, I don't know if that would have fit in this set list. It's a great song, but it's real slow. Yeah, the bass is killer on that, but I just think that maybe they would have just said, well, it was almost like a stumble to put that in there. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah, maybe so. And then the other 2 songs off the record that they didn't play, at least didn't release on the live bit here, are Yap Yap and Demon. And these are both very mellow songs. These would be big pace changers, for the most part. And he already has, Hate It When You Leave on there, which is a pretty chill song. He wants to kind of keep the energy up, at the rock concert. You don't want to bring it down. But I love both of those songs. And he does Time Is On My Side, which kind of brings things down to a chill. Mm-hmm. He did do Yap Yap live. It's just he didn't put it on the live bit here. But I don't know that they ever really did Demon. It seems like it would be an evil song. Oh, Keith's singing about demon. But, he said, there's a demon in me. But it's like chill. It's not so much bluesy as it is like a blues folk song, almost. I don't know. It's kind of a little different.
Yeah, I like that tune. You're right. The first time I saw it, like the track listing, I'm like, ooh, yeah, what is this going to be? I'm a demon. No, there's things going on inside of you that you can't. He's got a line in there, but I can't, demon to me, but I can't live without it. Yeah, mm-hmm. What does that refer to? Well, line up, because there's a lot of stuff.
That's right.
And then yap yap. It's, you're always talking yap yap. What's that about? Who could he possibly be talking about with somebody who won't shut up? I don't know. But
I hear you talking, and here's me walking. But it's a lot more chill than say like George Thorogood's "You Talk Too Much." Whereas the chorus is subtle. Shut up, shut up.
Hi, this is Christy Alexander Hallberg, author of the novel Searching for Jimmy Page, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast.
It's a classic record. I'm really glad they gave us this live bit. It'd be great to see a DVD at some point, like an official one. I don't know if that'll happen or not. Jane Rose, you need to get on that, dear. But it's great to relive this record, to revisit it, to hear the stuff. Great that Keith is feeling good, that the Wynos got together one more time, and that, hey, gonna get to see the Stones one more time in Europe at least. So,
yeah, if they were gonna redo this record for the anniversary, I'm glad, because you've got to do something for it, right? You can't just put the record back out again. So you've got to have extra tracks. You've got to have something. So to have this mini concert included, I think that was the way to go on this thing, because that's really what you wanted to hear. These songs were built to play live, So I'm glad that they included this. The sound is great on it. I mean, sometimes, maybe because I don't think this is the first time they've ever released this, right?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge. Yeah, absolutely.
So then, did you ever really mean to do this? So sometimes when that happens, maybe the sound quality isn't that great because it was kind of an afterthought. But, I mean, this sounds really great. It sounds like you're really there at the show, kind of warts and all. You kind of hear sometimes things fade in and out. Like maybe you were a little too far away from the microphone and they didn't clean it up. So it sounds good. It sounds like you were there. I'm glad they took it in this direction. And I'm glad that they kind of mixed up the packaging a little bit. Like on the cover, it's just a picture without the script on it for the main offender.
Right.
And so, but then if you open it up, they do give you the original cover. But I just think it's kind of cool that the pictures in it are great. The notes, like you mentioned before, of, just kind of scratching down stuff that's coming out of your head. It just kind of adds to the packaging, and I'm glad they did it this way.
You're right. No, very nice digibook, they call this. Again, you can get like the $300 version with the LPs and the CDs and the book. And the book looked amazing, but I'm not going to pay $300 for a book, I don't think. It's just going to sit there gathering dust most of the time. Amazing collectors, and having the ticket stub in there is really neat. I mean, yeah, it's a nice little package here for the average man, for the standard consumer. You could have just bought the remastered original disc. They did have that option available as well. So I highly recommend it to any Keith fan or even a Stones fan. Come check it out.
Yeah, especially if for whatever reason you didn't hear this. I can't imagine you wouldn't. But I mean, again, I don't remember it getting as much press as Talk is Cheap. So if you missed it the first time out, definitely pick this up because you will not be disappointed.
Well, that wraps episode 97 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock podcast on Keith Richards' Main Offender, 30th anniversary edition, something that was big for both of us in college. I know all the other kids were listening to the grunge and all that stuff, but I don't know, Keith Richards was legit. We loved the Steel Wheels. We were so happy that the Stones came back into our world. And it was his second solo album, first after they had gone back together and done Steel Wheels. And it meant a lot to us. It got play on rock radio. And it was a real big go-to for us. Plus, it's Keith, And we were actually kind of hoping we get more Wynos. But then, of course, the next year, 94, they would do Voodoo Lounge and do another huge world tour. And that would be the first time Jackson and I saw the Stones together. So this one's always going to hold a special place in our heart. It's one that we've had on the shelf for a while, but we're glad to put it out here. October 19th is the 30th anniversary date. You're going to be seeing things on social media all about it, hopefully in the big press as well. And we just wanted you to hear our take on it on the new live bit. And we love Keith. I was so glad I got to see Keith 2 more times this summer, be able to take my daughter. Special moments in my rock and roll journey while in London. So we have to ask you folks, hey, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You have got to let us know. You email us, uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com, or shoot us a tweet or a DM at ugly_werewolf at actionjack72. We're also on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. And we thank our sponsors, rarevinyl.com. Remember, Rare Vinyl has over 250,000 items in stock and will ship anywhere in the world to get you that pristine, classic, first edition copy of an LP, a CD, a tour program, whatever it is you're looking for. And you can use code PODCAST, just PODCAST, to get 10% off not only your first order, but every order you make. Go to EIL.com or rarevinyl.com. Of course, we thank our friends at Pantheon Media. We're so proud to be sponsoring Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets US Tour. Make sure you go to pantheonpodcast.com/Nick Mason to enter to win a VIP experience, including 2 front row seats. And if you come to Indianapolis on October 14th, you might just get to meet us. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to know who's listening to the show, who loves Pink Floyd, and who's going to be out there that night. So please come by and see us. Next week, we've got some special surprises, some fun stuff coming up on the Wolf. I can't even tell you what exactly we'll be doing on the next show, but just know we are excited, and I'm going to be coming to the States before too long here. Very excited about that. Haven't been to America in more than 16 months. I'm really looking forward to it. See some family, see some friends, see Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets at Close Hall. All right, folks, listen, all you rock and rollers all over the world, be cool and stay safe.